A Mind for Numbers, How to Excel at Math and Science Even If You Flunked Algebra, by Barbara Oakley, Ph.D. Introduction. What if I told you that the secret to becoming great at something you're terrible at is to stop trying so hard? It sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? But it's one of the most profound truths about how our minds work. And it's a truth that one woman had to discover the hard way, on a journey that took her from being a self-proclaimed math hater to a celebrated professor of engineering. Her name is Barbara Oakley. Growing up, she was the furthest thing from a numbers person. Math and science were like a foreign language to her, a language she had no interest in learning. She flunked her way through high school math, finding comfort instead in words, languages, and culture. She loved learning Russian so much that she enlisted in the U.S. Army, where they'd pay her to master it. And she did. She became an exceptional linguist, at the top of her game. But then, life threw her a curveball. The Army commissioned her as a second lieutenant in the Signal Corps, and suddenly, this master of language was expected to become an expert in radio, cable, and telephone switching systems. She was thrown into a world of technology and mathematics that felt alien and hostile. She went from being an expert to a complete novice, and it was a humbling, frustrating experience. Facing a future with limited career options outside the military, she stood at a crossroads. Could she do the unthinkable? Could she retool her brain? Could she transform herself from a technophobe into a technophile? From a mathphobe into someone who could actually master the very subject she once despised? She had never heard of anyone doing it before, at least not from the depths of her own mathematical despair. But she decided to try. And the journey was brutal. She felt like she was stumbling in the dark, watching younger students effortlessly grasp concepts that felt like impossible puzzles to her. But slowly, painstakingly, she began to figure it out. She discovered that her problem wasn't a lack of intelligence. Her problem was that she had been trying to learn in a way that was completely at odds with how the brain is actually designed to learn. She was trying to lift a heavy log while standing on top of it. What she uncovered during that struggle became the foundation for this remarkable book, A Mind for Numbers. This isn't just a book about math and science. It's the instruction manual for your brain that you were never given at birth. It has sold millions of copies and has transformed the lives of students and lifelong learners around the world, because it demystifies the art of learning itself. So, here is my promise to you. Stick with me for this journey, and by the end, you won't just understand the secrets to learning math and science. You will hold a set of keys that can unlock your potential in almost anything you want to master. You will learn how to tame procrastination, how to build a powerful memory, and most importantly, how to work with your brain, instead of against it. Because the most important lesson Barbara Oakley discovered is this: being good at something isn't just something you are, it's something you become. And today, we're going to learn how. Book summary. Let's begin with a story. Imagine a chessboard. On one side sits Garry Kasparov, the legendary grandmaster, perhaps the greatest chess player of all time. His focus is a laser beam. On the other side is a 13-year-old boy named Magnus Carlsen. They're playing speed chess. The clock is ticking, the pressure is immense. And in the middle of this high-stakes game, the young Carlsen does something utterly bizarre. He stands up. He wanders away from the board and casually looks at the other games being played around him. To an outsider, it looks like arrogance, or a foolish lapse in concentration. Kasparov himself was flustered. But Carlsen wasn't just playing mind games. He was using a secret weapon, an intuitive understanding of the two different ways our brain thinks. And he would go on to become the youngest top-rated chess player in history. So, what was his secret? It's the first and most important idea in A Mind for Numbers. Our brains have two fundamentally different modes of thinking. Drive. Oakley calls them the focused mode and the diffuse mode. You can't be in both modes at the same time. You're either in one or the other. The focused mode is exactly what it sounds like. It's what you use when you're concentrating intently on something. When you're trying to solve a multiplication problem, follow the steps in a chemistry experiment, or conjugate a verb in Spanish. It's a state of high attention, rational, sequential, and analytical. Drive. Oakley uses a brilliant metaphor to explain this. Imagine your brain is a pinball machine. When you're in the focused mode, the rubber bumpers on that pinball machine are packed very close together. When you launch a thought, it bounces around quickly along familiar, well-worn pathways. This is great if you're working on a problem you already know how to solve. The thought moves smoothly from one bumper to the next until it finds the solution. But what happens when you're learning something new? Or when you're stuck on a problem you've never seen before? That's when the focused mode can become a trap. Because the bumpers are so close together, your thought can get stuck bouncing around in one small area of the brain. You keep trying the same wrong approach over and over again, hitting the same bumpers, but the actual solution lies in a completely different part of the pinball machine, a part your thought can't reach. This is a phenomenon called the Einstellung effect. It's when an idea you already have in mind, your initial thought, prevents a better solution from being found. You're so focused on the one way you think it should be done, that you become blind to other, simpler possibilities. Have you ever spent hours wrestling with a math problem, only to have the answer pop into your head while you're in the shower, or out for a walk? That's the other mode at work. That's the diffuse mode. The diffuse mode is your brain's big picture mode. It's what happens when you relax your attention and just let your mind wander. Think of it as the pinball machine, but now, the rubber bumpers are spread far, far apart. When you launch a thought, it doesn't get stuck in one area. It can travel long distances, leaping from one part of the brain to another, making connections between ideas that seemed completely unrelated. The diffuse mode isn't for working out the fine details. It's for getting a new perspective. It's the source of those sudden aha moments of insight. It's the quiet background processing that happens when you're not even consciously thinking about the problem. It's what Magnus Carlsen was tapping into when he walked away from the chessboard. By turning his focused attention away from the game, he allowed his diffuse mode to go to work, to see the board in a new light, and to find a solution that Kasparov, with all his focused intensity, had missed. So, here is the first rule of effective learning. To learn something new and difficult, you need to allow your brain to switch back and forth between these two modes. You start with a focused mode. You put in the hard work. You grapple with the problem. You try to understand the key ideas. You load the information into your brain. But then, when you get stuck, and you will get stuck, you have to do something that feels completely counterintuitive. You have to walk away. Take a break. Go for a run. Listen to music. Tidy your room. Do anything that takes your mind off the problem for a while. This isn't laziness. This is a crucial part of the learning process. It's during these breaks that your diffuse mode gets to work, making connections in the background. When you come back to the problem later, you'll often find that the solution feels surprisingly obvious. The brain needs this downtime. Learning isn't a sprint, it's a rhythm. It's like building a brick wall. The focused mode is the work of laying the bricks. The diffuse mode is the time you give the mortar to dry and set. If you just keep laying bricks without any breaks, you end up with a weak, jumbled mess. But if you work consistently, with periods of focused effort followed by periods of mental rest, you build a strong, solid structure of knowledge. This brings us to the next big idea: chunking. What is a chunk? A chunk is a piece of information that is bound together through meaning. It's a mental leap that unites separate bits of information into a single, cohesive whole. Think about learning to read. At first, you see the letters C, A, T. 3 separate pieces of information. But with practice, your brain links them together into one smooth, conceptual chunk. The word cat. You don't see the letters anymore. You see the idea. That one simple chunk, cat, is connected to a whole network of other chunks. Fur, purring, whiskers, paws. Or think about getting dressed in the morning. You don't think, first, I must pick up my left sock. Then, I must insert my left foot into the sock. No, you just think one simple chunk. I'll get dressed. That one thought triggers a whole cascade of complex actions without you having to think about the details. Chunking is the process of creating these compact packets of knowledge. And it's the key to gaining expertise in any field. When you're first learning something, it can feel overwhelming. Your working memory, the part of your brain that juggles what you're immediately and consciously processing, can only hold about 4 chunks of information at a time. If you're trying to solve a new type of physics problem, every single step, every symbol in the equation, takes up one of those precious slots. Your mental blackboard is completely full, and it's easy to get confused. But once you've practiced that type of problem enough, the entire procedure collapses into a single chunk. It becomes one smooth ribbon of thought. Now, that entire complex solution only takes up one slot in your working memory. This frees up the rest of your mental space to think about bigger things, like how this concept connects to others, or how to tackle the next, even harder problem. This is why chess masters like Magnus Carlsen can glance at a board and instantly see the best move. They aren't calculating every possibility from scratch. They have a vast mental library of thousands of chunks, patterns of play they have internalized through years of practice. That chunked library allows them to see the big picture and make intuitive leaps that a novice could never manage. So how do you build a chunk drive? Oakley lays out 3 simple steps. Step 1. Focused attention. You can't build a chunk if you're distracted. You need to eliminate interruptions, put your phone away, turn off the TV, and focus your undivided attention on the information you want to chunk. Your brain needs to dedicate its resources to firing and wiring the new neural patterns together. Step 2. Understanding. This is the superglue that holds the chunk together. You need to grasp the basic idea of what you're learning. This doesn't mean you have to become a world expert overnight. It just means getting the gist of it. This is where that back and forth between the focused and diffuse modes is so important. You focus to get the basic idea, then let your diffuse mode connect it to what you already know. But here's a crucial warning, one of the biggest traps students fall into: do not confuse the aha of understanding with true mastery. You know the feeling. You're in class, the teacher explains a difficult concept, and suddenly, it clicks. Aha! I get it. Or you're looking at the solution to a homework problem and you think, oh yeah, I see why they did that. This is what drive Oakley calls an illusion of competence. The information seems familiar, so your brain tricks you into believing it's stored in your memory. But it's not. Merely looking at the answer gives you the illusion that you've learned it, but you've done almost nothing to knit those concepts into your own neurocircuitry. How do you fight this illusion? With the most powerful learning technique of all, recall. After you read a page in your textbook, look away and try to recall the main ideas. After you watch a lecture, summarize the key points to a friend. After you work through an example problem, cover it up and try to solve it yourself, from scratch. This act of retrieving information from your own memory is far more effective than simply rereading it. Rereading is passive. Recall is active. Every time you successfully recall something, you are strengthening the neural connections and cementing that chunk more deeply in your long-term memory. It's hard work, but it's the only work that truly matters. Step 3. Context. The third step in chunking is to understand not just how to use the chunk, but when to use it. This is the difference between being a good student and being a true problem solver. You build context by practicing with a variety of different problems. This is a technique called interleaving. Instead of doing 20 problems of the exact same type in a row, which is called overlearning and can be a waste of time, you should mix it up. Do a problem from Chapter 3, then one from Chapter 1, then another from Chapter 3. This feels harder. It feels less productive than breezing through a set of identical problems. But that struggle is a sign that you are learning more deeply. You're not just learning how to use a single tool, you're learning how to choose the right tool from your entire toolbox. This is what builds flexibility and creativity. So, to recap the path to mastery, you use the focused mode to start grappling with a concept. You take breaks to let the diffuse mode connect it to the bigger picture. And you build solid chunks through focused attention, understanding, and recall, and then you learn when to use those chunks through interleaved practice. It's a simple, elegant process. But there's a monster that stands in the way for so many of us. A monster that whispers sweet nothings about later and tomorrow. That monster is procrastination. Why do we procrastinate? The answer, according to neuroscience, is surprisingly simple. We procrastinate on things that make us feel uncomfortable. When you even think about doing something you dislike, like studying for that dreaded calculus exam, the pain centers in your brain can actually light up. It feels, on a neural level, like a tiny bit of pain. So, what does your brain do? It looks for a way to stop that pain. And it finds a very effective one. It shifts your attention to something more pleasant. Suddenly, checking your phone, watching a video, or tidying your sock drawer seems like the most important thing in the world. And it works. The moment you shift your focus, that feeling of discomfort disappears. You get a little dollop of pleasure, a temporary reward. And just like that, you've reinforced a habit. Procrastination, drive, Oakley explains, is a habit. And like all habits, it has 4 parts. 1. The cue. This is the trigger. It might be the time of day, a location, or a feeling of boredom or anxiety. It's the signal that launches your brain into its procrastination routine. 2. The routine. This is the zombie-like action you take. Instead of opening the textbook, you open your laptop to a social media site. This is your brain's pre-programmed response to the cue. 3. The reward. This is the temporary feeling of relief and pleasure you get from avoiding the uncomfortable task. The reward is what makes the habit stick. 4. The belief. Over time, you start to believe this is just who you are. I'm a procrastinator. This belief makes the habit even more powerful. Procrastination is like a tiny dose of poison. One dose won't kill you. You can even build up a tolerance. You can pull an all-nighter and still pass the test. And that little win serves as a reward that encourages you to do it again. But over time, the poison accumulates. You fall further and further behind, your foundations become shaky, and eventually, the stress and poor performance become overwhelming. So how do you fight it? You don't fight it with willpower. Willpower is a limited resource. Trying to force yourself to do something you hate is exhausting. Instead, you have to be clever. You have to trick your inner zombies, your habits, into working for you, not against you. The secret is to change just one part of the habit loop, the routine. The cue will still happen. The feeling of discomfort will still arise. But you need a new plan for what to do when it does. And the most powerful plan is to focus on process, not product. The product is what causes the pain. It's the finished homework assignment, the completed essay. Thinking about the product feels overwhelming. The process, on the other hand, is just the flow of time. It's the small, manageable actions you take. Your goal isn't to finish the homework. Your goal is to spend 25 minutes working. This is the magic of the Pomodoro technique. It's deceptively simple. You set a timer for 25 minutes. During that 25 minutes, you work with focused attention. No distractions. When the timer goes off, you put a check mark on a piece of paper, and then you take a short 5-minute break. This is your reward. Go get a drink, stretch, check your messages. After your break, you set the timer again. Why does this work so well? Because 25 minutes is nothing. Anyone can do 25 minutes of focused work. It's not intimidating. It bypasses the pain centers of your brain. By focusing on the process, the 25 minutes of effort, you take the pressure off the product. And something amazing happens. You start to make progress. Those little check marks create a feeling of accomplishment, which rewires your brain to associate this new routine with a positive reward. You're not trying to change your entire personality overnight. You're just building a new, simple routine. And over time, this new habit becomes stronger than the old one. Another key to taming procrastination is to create a weekly and daily to-do list. Write it down the night before. This does two things. First, it offloads the tasks from your working memory, freeing up mental space for actual problem solving. Second, it allows your diffuse mode to start working on those tasks while you sleep, so you're better prepared to tackle them the next day. And when you make your list, remember this powerful piece of advice: eat your frogs first. Do the most important and most disliked task first thing in the morning. That one victory can set a positive tone for the entire day. Finally, let's talk about building a truly powerful memory. We often think of memorization as a dull, brute force activity. But Drive Oakley reveals that it can be one of the most creative things you do. The key is to tap into your brain's most powerful memory system, your visuospatial memory. We have an incredible, almost limitless capacity to remember images and places. Think about it. Can you remember the layout of your childhood home, the route to your school? Of course you can. Your brain is built for this. So, how do we use this superpower for learning? One of the most ancient and powerful techniques is the memory palace. You choose a place you know well, your house, for example, and you use it as a virtual notepad. Let's say you need to memorize the 5 layers of the epidermis for a biology class. You could create a bizarre, unforgettable image for each layer and place it in a different room of your memory palace. You walk in your front door, and there's a gigantic, spiky cactus spinning around stratum spinosum. You go into the kitchen, and the floor is covered in grains of sugar stratum granulosum. The crazier and more vivid the image, the more senses you can involve: smell, sound, touch, the more easily it will stick in your memory. To recall the list, you just take a mental walk through your house and see what you've left there. This technique turns memorization from a chore into a creative adventure. Another powerful tool is the use of metaphors and analogies. When you're trying to understand a new concept, ask yourself, what is this like? Trying to understand electric current? It's like water flowing through a pipe. Voltage is like the pressure from a pump. These simple metaphors give you a hook, a connection to an existing neural structure that you can build upon. The great scientists and mathematicians of history were masters of metaphor. Einstein imagined himself riding on a beam of light. That act of creative visualization led to his theory of relativity. Learning is not a one-dimensional activity. It's about building a rich, interconnected web of chunks in your mind. And to do that, you need a full toolkit: the rhythm of focused and diffuse thinking, the solid foundation of well-built chunks, the discipline to overcome procrastination, and the creative spark of memory techniques. But there's one final piece of the puzzle. It's the mindset you bring to the journey. Drive. Oakley tells the story of Santiago Ramon y Cajal, a young man from rural Spain in the 1860s who was a rebellious troublemaker, locked in jail for blowing up his neighbor's gate with a homemade cannon. He hated school, especially math and science. His true passion was art. Everyone had given up on him. But Cajal, through sheer perseverance, clawed his way into medical school. And there, he discovered that his artistic skills gave him a unique advantage. He could draw the intricate neural cells he saw under the microscope with a beauty and clarity that no one else could match. His persistence, his flexibility, and his willingness to admit when he was wrong, what he called the virtue of the less brilliant, led him to win the Nobel Prize. He became the father of modern neuroscience. Cajal's story, like Barbara Oakley's, teaches us the most important lesson of all. Our brains are not fixed. We can change them. We can sculpt them through our efforts. Persistence is often more important than raw intelligence. In fact, sometimes, being a slower learner can be an advantage. You may be grappling with the material at a deeper level, asking foundational questions that quicker students gloss over. And you don't have to do it alone. Working with others, explaining concepts to your friends, is one of the best ways to learn. It forces you to clarify your own thinking and catches the blind spots that we all have. Your friends can act as a sort of external, big-picture diffuse mode for you. So, as you go on your own learning journey, remember that the tools are available to you. You have the ability to switch between focused concentration and relaxed, big-picture thinking. You have the power to build a library of mental chunks that can make you an expert. You have the strategies to tame your inner procrastination zombies and make your habits work for you. And you have the creative capacity to build a memory palace filled with unforgettable knowledge. Your potential is not locked away in a safe you can't open. You already have the combination. You just need to learn how to use it. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through A Mind for Numbers, I want to take a moment to reflect on why this book is so profoundly important, especially right now. We live in a world that often celebrates innate talent. We see the brilliant athlete, the genius programmer, the natural musician, and we think, they just have something I don't. We put them on a pedestal and, in doing so, we often create an excuse for ourselves. We decide that because we're not a natural, we can't achieve mastery. We label ourselves, I'm bad at math, I'm not creative, I'm just a procrastinator, and we live inside the walls of those self-imposed limitations. Barbara Oakley's work is a powerful antidote to that way of thinking. Its central message is a declaration of independence for every learner. It tells us, with kindness, with humor, and with a wealth of scientific evidence, that the story we tell ourselves about our abilities is often wrong. Your brain is not a fixed object. It is a dynamic, living thing that you can reshape and improve throughout your entire life. What I find most beautiful about this book is its deep sense of empathy. It was born from struggle. Barbara Oakley doesn't speak from on high as a natural-born genius. She speaks as someone who has been in the trenches, who knows the frustration of feeling lost and inadequate. And because of that, her advice isn't just theoretical, it's practical, it's humane, and it works. The idea of the focused and diffuse modes of thinking isn't just a clever scientific finding, it's a form of permission. It gives us permission to take a break, to rest, to trust that our minds are still working even when we are not consciously grinding away. It reframes rest not as a luxury, but as a necessity for deep learning and creativity. The concept of chunking provides a clear roadmap to expertise. It demystifies the process of becoming good at something. It's not magic, it's a process of building a mental library, brick by brick, through focused practice and recall. It tells us that mastery isn't about giant leaps, but about small, consistent efforts repeated over time. And perhaps most transformatively, her approach to procrastination changes it from a moral failing into a solvable, mechanical problem. By framing it as a habit loop, a cue, a routine, a reward, she removes the shame and guilt. It's not that you're lazy or undisciplined, it's that your brain has a faulty piece of code running. And she gives you the tools, like the Pomodoro technique and focusing on process, not product, to rewrite that code. So what can you take from this today? How can you start applying these ideas right now? Let me suggest 3 small experiments. First, the next time you sit down to work on a task you've been dreading, try one 25-minute Pomodoro. Just one. Don't think about finishing the task. Just focus on putting in 25 minutes of uninterrupted effort. See how it feels. Second, the next time you get truly stuck on a problem, any problem, in school or in life, deliberately get up and do something completely different for at least 10 minutes. Go for a walk. Listen to a song. Tidy your desk. Trust that your diffuse mode is at work, and when you return, see if you have a fresh perspective. Third, pick one small thing you learned today, from this summary, from a class, from a conversation, and explain it to someone else. A friend, a family member. Notice how the act of explaining it forces you to understand it more clearly. These are not just study tips. They are life skills. They are ways of working with the magnificent, complex, and sometimes frustrating instrument that is your brain. A mind for numbers doesn't just teach you how to learn, it teaches you how to believe in your own capacity for growth. It unlocks the door, but it is up to you to walk through it. That was a summary of A Mind for Numbers by Barbara Oakley. We've explored the core ideas today, but I have to be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The map is useful, it shows you the layout, but it can never replace the experience of actually walking the trails, breathing the air, and discovering the hidden gems for yourself. The real magic happens when you read the book. It's in the quiet moments, when a particular story or a simple phrase hits you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, I truly encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just an act of learning, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see your own potential. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to support the channel by hitting that like button and subscribing. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Thank you for joining me. Let's keep learning and growing together.